Good afternoon. We are Team 7, integrated by Marco Barreto and Gary Lara, and we are going to present our final project, the final delivery, Delivery 8. Well, as a brief introduction, in the whole semester we worked with water quality data, which come from water samples that have been taken from 4 monitoring stations that are located in the Zapotlan Lake in the state of Jalisco, here marked in red. Through 2009 to 2019, just as a brief explanation, we have two continuous variables which were measured from the samples taken from the lake, which are biochemical oxygen demand and total solids suspended in the lake. And also we have three categorical variables, which are lake location. As we said before, we have 4 different stations and 2 time frames, time frame 1 and time frame 2, which are selected from milestones of the lake location. Our scientific hypotheses were the following. The first one was that the lake location has an effect over the biochemical oxygen demand variable. The second one was that the time over the years, the time one variable, has an effect over the biochemical oxygen demand variable. And the third scientific hypothesis is that the introduction of sewage treatment plants around the lake, which is the categorical variable time 2, have an effect over the total solids variable. Well, regarding the first scientific hypothesis, we stated our first statistical hypothesis, which is that the null hypothesis says that there are no significant difference between the average biochemical oxygen demand among the lake location, while the alternative hypothesis says that there is a significant difference between this variable, the average BOD, among the lake location. Here we're comparing the mean BOD value of the 4 stations in the lake, as we said before. And here are the mean 1, mean 2, and so on, and the alternative hypothesis. Since the BOD variable, as in the next slide we're going to present, follows a gamma distribution, here we can see the QQ plot and the log likelihood. These are the mean in the gamma distribution, so this is what we are comparing. The Bayesian scope or approach. Here we have the first graph. We have the likelihood function, which is gamma, as we said, for the 4 stations. Then we have the conjugate prior, which is gamma also, and his value for the 4 stations. And then we have this posterior PDF graph for the 4 sampling points. In this, as we see in class, we are seeking to find if these curves overlaps each other. Since there is an overlapping, this means, or could mean, that the mean of each station, the mean of the BOD value of each station is the same. So in this case, we accept the null hypothesis, which is that there is no significant difference between the mean value of the BOD variable among the stations. For the Fisherian approach, we calculate the MLE, here we have it, and the serial LB, the camera lower bound, for each station. And here we are seeking to find difference in the curves also. So since the 4 MLE points are separated from each other, we can reject the null hypothesis and state that there is a significant difference between the sampling points in the BOD variable. Next, for the James-Thames approach, here we have the original bootstrap of the data. for each station. Here we have the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. And then we plot the general James Stein, or the whole with the range included. And finally, we have this, which are the mean, the James Stein value. And we are here as the two previous approaches, seeking to find if there is any similarity in the value. For example, here for the station 2 and station 3, since they are very close each other, we can conclude that there are that their means are equal. But this is not the case for the sample 4 and sample 1, which are considerably different from this value. So in this case, we decided to reject the null hypothesis and state that there is a significant difference for the BOD variable among the stations.
So here we are in the statistical hypothesis number 2, the interaction of sewage treatment plants around the lake, the time 2, have an effect over the total biochemical oxygen demand. And we have that for the null hypothesis, that there are no significant differences between the average biochemical demand among periods with different presence of water treatment plants. And the alternative hypothesis says that there's a difference between the means. Okay. So for the Bayesian approach, we have the likelihood on the left, and then we have the conjugate prior for the log normal distribution, and the posterior we have it over here. And as we see that the curves do not overlap, and this suggests that we should reject the null hypothesis. And there's a difference between the means from each time period. Then we go to the Fisherian approach. And in here, as we see in the MLE plot, we have the time 1 represented in red and the time 2 represented in green. And as we see after the installation of sewage treatment plants, there's an increase of the means, and that means that there's a significant difference in the hypothesis. So we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative one. And now going to the James Stein approach, we can see that while using the bootstrapping, we replicated the data set 20 times. And we have the MLE approach over here. We have the James Stein. We can see the shrinkage over here. And we have the true mean of that time frame. And we have the same for the second time frame. And if we overlap these two plots, we can see that for the James Steins, we have a range over here. So we take the minimum range and the maximum range, and we say that if anything within this range, that means that the means are equal, and if out of this range, the means are different. And that's what we have here on the right plot. And as we see, this range of the first time frame, the second time frame, and the first time frame, they're so separate apart. So that means that the means are different, and we reject the null hypothesis. And for the third hypothesis, we have that the agricultural activities during the time 1 around the lake have an effect on the total solid variable. And the statistical hypothesis states that there are no significant differences between the average total solids concentration among periods with different agricultural activities. And the alternative one, it says that there's a difference between the means. We have here the log normal distribution for the TS variable. And as we see, for the fitting the distribution, the goodness of fit, we have the best log normal, the log livelihood score is the best for the log normal. And then the QQ plot, it follows a straight line. So we keep with the log normal distribution for this variable. And again, we go for the Bayesian approach, and we have the likelihood distribution on the left. We have the conjugate prior on the right and on the center. And to the right, we have the posterior distribution. And as we see, the time frame number 1 is different from the time frame number 2. And since they do not overlap, we reject the null hypothesis and say that the means are different. Now going to the Fisherian approach, or the different time frames, we see that the MLE, we have one curve over here in the time frame 2, and we have the curve in red for the time frame 1. And since they're apart from each other and they do not overlap, we reject the null hypothesis and say that the means are different. Going to the next one with the James-Stein, we have that for time frame number 1, we do a bootstrapping, and then we try to approach it with a MLE, a James-Stein, and we know the true mean of the distribution. Same for the time frame number 2. We take the 20 different points for the MLE, the James-Stein, and we know the true mean. So we see again the ranges over here of the James-Stein, and there's some overlap. And within this range, the means are equal or similar, and out of this range, the means are different. So we plot these ranges for the James-Stein, and we see that from the time frame 2 and the time frame 1, there's a significant difference, and that suggests that we need to reject the null hypothesis. And we state that the means are different. We also did the analysis of the linear model and using the generalized linear models to see the how it relates the BOD data with the TS variable. And we see that as the solids in the water, which is a contaminant, increases, the biochemical oxygen demand increases as well. And this is a bad thing. We want them to be as close as possible to 0. So in the sense that TS increases, BOD increases as well. So we see that there's a strong relationship in between these two variables to determine the contaminants in the water. And we compare these two models, and we use the residuals from the linear model, and we obtain a residuals of 2000. And we take from the GLM, similarly, the value of the log likelihood. And since we are interested in the absolute value, and the absolute value nearest to 0 is the one with the better model, we see that for the GLM, we have a score of 24. And this states that the GLM has a better fit for this data set, or for these two variables. And finally, we have a summary. We did different methods. We use different methods to test our hypothesis. We use the Bayesian approach, and we see that in one of those, we accepted the null hypothesis for the BOD stations. We use the Fisherian approach, and we reject them all, the null hypothesis. With the James-Stein, we rejected the null hypothesis for all of them. And finally, we did another analysis, which is the Wilcox. And this served us to see a comparison between all of the models and how they were performing. And in the Wilcox, we see that the null hypothesis is accepted for the BOD stations, and it's rejected for the timeframes of the BOD and the TS. So what we can see here is that the treatment plants have been working as they're supposed to, and they're cleaning the water and removing the total solids from the water. But as well, that means that in the 4 stations, not all of the 4 stations have treatment plants. So that's why we see the difference in the means of the BOD stations. But if they weren't treatment stations or treatment plants, that would mean that the BOD stations would have a mean equal to all of the stations. So as we see from the activities around the lake, we have agricultural and livestock activities. And from those two activities, as time goes by and these activities increases, the biochemical oxygen demand will increase as well. These were our conclusions as a brief summary. And we strongly suggest that for the complete project, we can find in the next repository, where you can find the derivation, the analysis, you can find the code, the full conclusions, and additional information for this project, as we can see here in this repository. That will be everything from our part. Thank you very much.